Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Dennis, and today I'm going to talk about moving students from surface answers into strategic thinking. As we're talking through today about how we prepare our future ready business students, I believe students need a lot more now, of course, than business knowledge, right? They need structured routines for thinking through ambiguity and generating options. And making strategic choices under a lot of uncertainty. I kept seeing in my classroom when we were working in simulations or we're discussing case studies or completing large hands-on projects that, students often know the vocabulary and the concepts, but when the situation starts to get messy, they really look for that fastest right answer. So today I'm sharing 4 simple creativity routines to really design to help students slow down, generate options, and make some more strategic decisions. So the biggest is the challenge, right? We ask students to think creatively, but we rarely prepare their minds to do so. We move straight into an application, a simulation round, a case discussion, a project challenge, and we expect creative strategic responses, but we don't always give them the mental warm up or the structure they need before entering that ambiguous space. So students will tend to stay at the surface. The issue isn't necessarily always knowledge, it's the thinking process. They know the concepts, but they want certainty. So they move very quickly to the safest or the most obvious answer, and they really skip the exploration process. So instead of asking, what else could be true, they jump to what's the answer. So the goal with any of these isn't really to add more content. It's just to give the students routines that help them think before they answer. I think of it as like warming up a muscle, right? We wouldn't expect students to perform physically without warming up, but we often expect them to perform creatively or strategically without necessarily warming up their thinking. If I went around the Zoom today and asked all of you if you felt like you were creative, most of you would say no, that you're just not creative. But creativity is not a personality trait. It is a skill and it can be prompted and it can be practiced and it can be strengthened over time. So even a 5-minute thinking routine can help students shift from reacting to really exploring. So this slide for me is kind of the heart of the session. Strategic thinking needs options. So a surface answer asks, what's the right answer? Creative thinking asks, what else could be possible? And then strategic thinking asks, what option best fits the audience, the context, and the goal that we're trying to achieve? So creativity isn't separate from strategy. It creates the options that strategy depends on. And if students are only generating that one kind of obvious answer, then there's not a whole lot of strategy involved. So the classroom shift is really from answer seeking to possibility generating. So instead of asking, what is the answer? It's trying to train students to ask questions like, what are the possibilities? What else could be true that we're not thinking about? What assumptions are we making that might not be true? What are other ways that we can solve this? So there's, several different routines that you can utilize. There's 4 routines that I use in my classroom a lot that I'm going to share that give students just a structure for working kind of inside ambiguity, understanding their audience, challenging assumptions they might have, really expanding on their options, and then reflecting on the decisions that they make as well. So the first technique is empathy mapping. And for those of you in marketing that have done customer journey mapping, it's very kind of similar to that, just a little more high level. And the purpose really with empathy mapping is the same, to understand the audience before solving the problem. So students choose who they're designing for, or they're making a decision about, and they'll map what that person might think or feel or say or do. And the key is that students don't jump right straight into a solution. They're first kind of pausing and noticing, what are the needs? What are pain points? What are frustrations that this audience is having? And then they turn that insight into a how might we question. How might we make it easier to set up this technology? So empathy mapping really helps students solve from an audience insight, not necessarily an assumption that might have. The next kind of bleeds right into that as well, and this is assumption reversal. Resumption reversal, you take, you name an assumption and then you reverse it. So for example, if they assume customers always want the lowest price, and reverse it. What if customers don't want the lowest price? What if customers want trust or convenience or speed or just a better experience? So you take that assumption, you reverse it, and you find new strategic possibilities to solve for that. So it's not really necessarily that the reversal is automatically correct, but it just opens up and helps showcase some of the hidden assumptions that we have about something. The third technique, and this one here I utilize a lot, is Scamper. So Scamper gives students really structured prompts to expand on an idea before judging it. So you could start this with any product, service, strategy, anything, solution. And what you're asking is, what could we substitute? What can we combine? What can we adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, or reverse? And this is really useful because a lot of students will stop at their first idea. And Scamper really pushes them to create variations before evaluating their choices. And then they can choose the option with the strongest audience fit or strategic potential. Scamper, if we're doing a semester-long project, I'll have them do a Scamper over a full course class period. But you can also use this as just a quick energizer as well. I'll a lot of times pick an object and have them do 1 or 2 or 3 of the tasks. So we'll start the class and I'll say, you know, you need to design a backpack for, you know, a commuter student. And I'll ask them, you have to substitute something, modify, and eliminate, and just kind of use it as kind of an energizer to start the class period. And then the fourth technique we utilize a lot is structured reflection. And this really matters because I do feel like students can complete a simulation, they can complete a semester-long project and still sometimes miss the learning unless we really help them examine their thinking. So structure reflection, I ask them questions like, what decisions did you make? What happened? What assumptions or evidence shaped your choices? What would you keep? What would you change? What would you test next time? So instead of only kind of asking like, you know, did we win? Did we lose? You know, what did we believe? What did we try? And what did we learn? And this is kind of where that activity really starts becoming learning and information they can take with them. So you can use these in class. They don't have to be big assignments. They can just be really small routines. You can use them as an energizer, a quick warm up before you start your classes, before they jump into a simulation or they start working on a project. You can use them as a practice round with really low stakes before they apply it to their course content. You can apply it directly into simulation discussions. And of course, you know, using reflection and debriefing, really connecting that technique to the quality of the discussion that you're going to have. So it fits into a pattern of, you know, warming up the mind, practicing the routine, applying it to the challenge, and then, you know, reflect on the thinking as well. And the benefits not just for the students to come up with more creative ideas, which is great, but you know, these routines really do start to strengthen creativity and strategic thinking for the students. For me as faculty, it really helps make ambiguity teachable. It was a very structured way for me to tell them, you know, think more strategically, think deeper, you know, it gives them a great structure for doing so. I do find with teams, it really improves collaboration because everyone has this great way that they can contribute. And then of course for programs and employers as well, you know, these are the career ready skills that we're keep saying matter, right? Questioning, creating, evaluating, adapting, that I feel like these tasks, these structures can give to the students. And of course, you know, why does it matter now? Well, we all know AI can generate answers very quickly, but students still need to be asking better questions, as we've said, right? AI can produce options, but you need to be able to evaluate whether those options are useful or ethical or feasible and strategically sound as well. So as routines become more automated, human value is really increasingly in judgment, in creativity, adaptability, decision making under that uncertainty. So, AI raises the bar, as we have said. Students don't just need answers, and they need these thinking routines to really question and create and evaluate and decide. So closing big idea creativity is not extra. It's really how students learn to think strategically. I did have a QR code there. This just links out to kind of a classroom toolkit. It's a lot of the activity steps. I threw in some of the prompts that I use and templates for these different techniques. I put a book list in there as well, a couple that I used in classes, a couple that I have read for those, kind of interested in this sort of creativity framework. And my hope is that you leave with maybe one routine you can try immediately, something small just to help students slow down and generate options and maybe make more thoughtful decisions in your classroom. Thank you.